When the Provost was elected in 2011, he gave an inaugural address, the first time that there had been an open address to the community by an incoming Provost. And 2 years ago, he addressed us at the midpoint of his 10-year term. Now, 2 years on, a lot has changed. There have been positive changes and accomplishments, but there are remaining challenges, such as appropriately funding higher education and research, and the global challenges of our world today. Thank you all for coming. It's a great sign for our community spirit and engagement that so many people are here. And I know that there's wide appreciation for this face-to-face communication, the opportunity to hear directly from the Provost and to have your views aired. So I'm happy to chair the event, and I will take questions at the end following the Provost's address. So I now invite the Provost to speak.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming. This is the last time I'll be making a formal State of the College address as Provost. In just 2.5 years, my term will be completed. And as I head into the home straight, so to speak, and as we start planning for the next strategic plan, which we'll be launching next year, I think it's useful to take a look at where we've come from, at what we've achieved, and our aspirations for the future. Let's take a look at our achievements and aspirations from the perspective of the college community and from the perspective of our place in Irish society and in the global academic world. First and most importantly, it's my opportunity to say thank you for the incredible work that so many have put in to deliver goals and exceed expectations. While preparing for this talk, I've read over my inaugural and mid-term addresses to remember where we were and what's changed. Reading back, I'd say that the prevailing tone of my inaugural address was one of crisis and urgency. Boiled down to its essence, that speech said, things are in a bad way, Trinity is standing firm by its mission and values, but our education and research are threatened by lack of funding and too much control and regulation. That speech was delivered in September 2011, and it's not a comfortable time to remember. The tone of the midterm address 5 years later was somewhat more optimistic. Here's what I said. State funding is still a problem, but we've been able to generate significant alternate sources of revenue, and we're implementing exciting projects like the Trinity Business School and the Trinity Education Project. That was 2016, and I think the note of cautious optimism was the right one. Today, there's a sense of having come through a difficult period. The mood on the campus is more confident. That's not to say there still aren't clouds. The overarching problem of inadequate investment in third level remains. That nettle has not been grasped nationally. Political expediency has prevailed. However, in Trinity, we've successfully completed several initiatives and many more are in train. And we're in a better position to plan for the future than we were 7 years ago. I'm fortunate that my provostship has gone in the direction it has. I say fortunate because, of course, I'm not claiming all the credit for this. I hope my leadership has helped, but much has to do with the national situation, the improvement in Ireland's economy generally, and so much has to do with all of you, the truly remarkable achievements of Trinity staff and students. I was asked recently what it was like leading a university, and a specific metaphor was employed. I was asked if Trinity ran like a well-oiled machine. Well, I thought about that, and I am a mechanical engineer, and I do like well-oiled machines. But Trinity is not like a well-oiled machine. A machine has a single engine, one motive force. A university is more like a series of machines. Perhaps you might say it's a flotilla. Trinity has its departments, schools, and faculties. It has the library, the administrative divisions, support services, the Students' Union, JUCAC, and the CSC. I could go on. The College Board keeps a handle on the whole, but we're dependent on each part of the college being motivated to achieve our common mission, on the flotilla moving in unison. And that's why great thanks are in order. If our situation is improving, it's because everyone took up the challenge. I believe the importance of our work, educating the next generation and delivering research and scholarship that improves our way of being in the world. It's a strong motivating factor for us all. Trinity is the sum of its parts. Let's take a moment to look at what's been achieved in the last few years. And I'm not going to give a roll call of all the projects done, processing and pending. But as we plan for the future, it's a good idea to take stock. We've enjoyed significant successes with capital development projects, with education and research initiatives, and with transforming the campus with the work of, for instance, global relations and the commercial revenue unit, the CREW. Since 2011, we've seen growth of €15 million from international fees and the same amount from commercial activities. And in both cases, this is recurrent annual revenue. That's a signal achievement, bringing essential funds to the university. But we don't measure success in terms of revenue alone. I'm recently back from a 2.5-week tour of Australia, Singapore, and Malaysia. And before that, I was in Japan. And everywhere I went, I saw evidence of Trinity's increasing engagement, student exchanges, research collaborations, and joint degree programs, where 10 years ago, we had no such partnerships. In Singapore, I took the opportunity to announce Stanley Kwek as a new Pro-Chancellor of this university. Sheila Green and Sean Barrett were also elected Pro-Chancellors at the same time. Some of you know Stanley. He's a graduate of our medical school, a Provost Council member, and one of Trinity's most dedicated supporters. This is the first time in our history that Trinity will have a Pro-Chancellor from outside these islands, so it's a seminal moment, and it's symbolic of the increased global connectivity of our university. Trinity enjoys increasing recognition around the world, and our numbers of global student exchanges, research collaborations, and industry partnerships are growing all the time, while our bonds with our global alumni are strengthening. For this, we must pay tribute to the truly exceptional work done by Jane Allmeyer and Juliet Hussey and their teams in global relations, and to Kate Bond and her team in Trinity Development and Alumni. The success of the Commercial Revenue Unit has also raised Trinity's profile. 10 days ago, Casey Clements from the state of Oregon became the millionth visitor to the Book of Kells in 2018. She arrived with her husband Andy to celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary. The Irish Independent picked up on this because it's such a nice Dublin story. And I think it's great that Trinity is part of the Dublin story. With the improvements planned for the old library through the philanthropic campaign, visitor numbers will only grow and people will enjoy an even better experience. Another initiative being successfully implemented is the Trinity Education Project, or TEP. It's the most ambitious renewal of the undergraduate curriculum in a century, and it's essential to prepare Trinity for far-reaching patterns of change in education and in the workplace. In the last 2.5 years, we've delivered on many aspects of TEP, including the new academic year structure, and we're on track to see it fully launched in September 2020. It builds on digital projects Genesis and FIS transformation, and under START also. Remember START? And the 21st Century Administration Project. The Trinity Business School will open in 6 months' time, and it will be co-located with Tangent, Trinity's Ideas Workspace. And planning permission for the demolition works to begin the E3 Learning Foundry has just been granted, and it's due for completion in September 2022. Both the Trinity Business School and the E3 Learning Foundry followed the same funding model. Strong philanthropic benefaction, allowing us to leverage state investment and raise loans. In the case of E3, this included the €25 million donation from the Naughton family, the largest single donation in the history of the state, and we thank them greatly for their generosity. Now, I'm going to bring up the first slide. It's a timeline about what I've talked about so far. After the E3 Learning Foundry, we will build the E3 Research Institute as a centrepiece of our new campus at the Grand Canal Innovation District, or GCID as we're calling it. And as you may know, Trinity, DCU and UCD signed a Memorandum of Understanding at a public launch in July, agreeing to work together with government and key state agencies on developing a common innovation vision for Dublin and the creation of GCID. And not forgetting the student residences as part of the new Printing House Square. In its own way, this is as essential as E3 or the Trinity Business School. We have a long tradition of student residence in college. It's part of what makes college years so memorable. These capital developments will enable many more students to be educated, and they allow us to continue providing a transformative student experience. There are, of course, many other successful recent capital development projects that I could point to, such as the Trinity Centre for Literary and Cultural Translation at 36 Fenian Street. And there are more initiatives across the university, like the PhD Project Awards, which have seen us bring 40 new funded PhD students to the university to work in vital areas of research, and that's entirely funded by profits from commercial revenue and from unrestricted donations by alumni to the university. We don't have time to go into all these, and we don't have time, and it's not necessary. It's not necessary, I think, to do a roll call like that to get across the substantive point, which is that we've delivered significantly on projects of serious ambition, leaving us in a strong position to plan for the future. Before we turn to consider the future, and specifically the two major initiatives upcoming in my provostship, the philanthropic campaign and the next strategic plan, I'd like to address a paradox. The paradox is that, after all I've said, Trinity's been falling rather than rising in the global rankings. If things have really been progressing that well, shouldn't we have seen a related rise in the rankings? Some years we go up, but mostly we go down. There are a few possible reasons for this. Maybe despite Trinity doing well globally, other universities are doing even better. And there could be something in this. Huge injections of state funding are making a big difference to universities in Asia, and private funding has transformed higher education in the USA and the UK, and neither of these are seen much in Ireland. But I don't really think that other universities around the world are achieving so much as to overshadow our achievements. Rather, I believe that we're underranked. It's taking time for the rankings to catch up with all we've done. Now, maybe this sounds like wishful thinking. Maybe it is. Only time will tell. But here's the evidence. Most notable to me is that in the last year, 2017, Trinity won €100.6 million in research funding. In 2013, that figure was €74 million. So we've increased our research funding by a third in under 5 years. That seems to me exceptional, and I don't believe it's reflected in the rankings. Our research success isn't just exceptional compared to other Irish universities. Among members of the League of European Research Universities, of which we are one, which is to say the elite universities of Europe, we're placed 14th for winning European Research Council grants. And again, this has yet to be reflected in the rankings. We've received many other benchmarks of success. For instance, our position as Europe's best university for educating entrepreneurs seems unassailable. We've come out on the top of this ranking in Europe for each of the last 5 years. Willingness of a top-ranked university like Columbia University in New York City to enter into a dual BA program with us speaks for itself, as does the eagerness of Oxford University to learn from us in how to do access programs. And of course, there's the distinctive honours to individuals. There are too many to name, but for instance, John Boland has just won SFI Researcher of the Year, with Tomas Ryan and Jane Farrer also being named among the 8 winners nationally. And a fortnight ago, Christine Casey, Professor in Architectural History, won the top British prize in her field, the Alice Davis Hitchcock Medallion for outstanding contribution to architecture history. And here, next slide, is a genuine photograph of my bedtime reading. Books by staff on history, literature, science and neuroscience, prize-winning novels and non-fiction by graduates, an essay by the Chancellor, and a memoir by one of our senators. All of these books have been published in the last few months, so it's not easy. I get, it's very generously, people send me copies of the books, and it's not easy to keep on top of them all, but I'm doing my best. So yes, I do believe that we're undervalued in the rankings, and I'm confident that with the Business School, E3, Grand Canal Innovation District, and other standout initiatives, we're going to reverse the decline. And I'd also say this. I'm not someone who goes around disparaging the importance of rankings. The rankings are here to stay. They're looked at closely by potential staff and students around the world, and they do provide a measurable benchmark. However, they don't measure, nor claim to measure, how a given university is delivering on its strategic plan. Trinity has a threefold mission, as detailed in our current strategic plan. Our 3 priorities are, and I quote, first, education and a transformative student experience. Second, research at the frontiers of disciplines, which makes a catalyzing impact on innovation and addressing global challenges. And third, advancing the cause of a pluralistic, just and sustainable society. Now the rankings are well set up to measure research. They do that through opinion surveys and citations in journals. They're less good at education, but they're getting better. However, the third part of our mission, a pluralistic, just and sustainable society, that's simply not measured by the rankings, which means that our vital initiatives in this sphere, including the Trinity Access Programme, membership of the International Sustainable Campus Network, the Dean's Roll of Honour for student volunteering, community liaison, all our public engagement and outreach projects, including lectures, exhibitions, science galleries, programs with primary and secondary schools, not to mention the activism of our students, all this, which takes considerable time and is the true marker of a distinctive university, goes unnoticed in the rankings. By not even attempting to measure pluralism, sustainability, and active citizenship, the rankings are sending out a message about what they believe the role of a university is. And frankly, I think their view of a university's role is reductive and doesn't allow for the transformative power which a great university can have on its region and on its graduates. On my trips abroad, I've seen firsthand what can happen when a university focuses too relentlessly on rankings. And to be honest, it isn't something I'd like to see us emulate here. Yes, such universities can deliver very many publications, and can train students in subjects that the political system deems important, but so much that we consider central to the mission of a university in society is lost. As a result, their campuses often lack social engagement, the critical, questing creativity that we take for granted. I don't say I loved the student protests last year. I certainly didn't love some of the tweets. But who could complain about students claiming Trinity as their own? Because it is. I don't want to lead a university which doesn't involve students in the way it's run. Student protest is how the younger generation speaks to those in power. I don't want to lead a university that encourages conformity. There's a cost involved in a university narrowing its mission to measurable outcomes, a cost to the region, to the intellectual and social formation of graduates, and ultimately to the university itself. It's important to make this argument because of what's been happening politically in the world over the past few years. Let me say a little bit more about this. In Europe and globally, we're seeing a retreat from the post-war consensus about free trade, human rights, universal values, and international institutions, and a move towards protectionism and illiberalism. And this is happening at a time of looming environmental threat, when we really need to come together as a global community and agree ways to save the planet. Does this have anything to do with universities? I think it does, and I'm not the only one. Recently, I attended a conference of the British-Irish Association in Pembroke College, Oxford, and it was a high-level event with many ministers and so on there from both the Irish side and the British side. And there was a special panel of university presidents, and we were all asked to talk about how Brexit is affecting the mental map of young people. And the question, in effect, was whether universities should feel responsible for the state that society is in. And I can't recall everything that my co-panelists said, but the general gist of it from the UK universities was, we're not in favour of Brexit. I'm a university vice-chancellor, as they say. I'm not in favour of Brexit, and my staff are not in favour of Brexit. But this was missing the point completely, of course. The universities are not primarily about the vice-chancellors or provosts. It's primarily about the students. It's primarily about the alumni. And when you lead the university of Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Michael Grove, John Redwood, blah, blah, you have to ask yourself, what kind of a university are you leading, and what kind of a society are you promoting among your students? A university can be highly ranked and yet lead to a less open society. And in the long run, that's what matters most. The best measure of a global university isn't how many publications it has or how many student exchanges it has or how international the faculty is. The best measure is its graduates' receptiveness to global ideas and relationships, and to its graduates' influence on their fellow citizens through participation in social and political institutions. Universities play a huge role in shaping the mental map of graduates. Who and how we educate determines what type of person enters leadership in politics, in business, in innovation, in diplomacy, in academia, and civil society. And of course, who and how we educate ultimately determines the research that we do. It could hardly be more important. We have to contribute to shaping societies that promote openness, inclusivity, equality, and the pursuit of knowledge. If we don't, we'll find that our activities contribute to society that closes in on itself and fails to expand knowledge for the benefit of all. In Trinity, social responsibility and active citizenship are intrinsic to our mission. It could hardly be otherwise. This is the University of Edmund Burke, Henry Grattan, Wolfe Tone, Robert Emmet, Thomas Davis, Oscar Wilde, Douglas Hyde, Edward Carson, John Redmond, Mary Robinson, David Norris, Mary McAleese. I could go on. Ireland and beyond. In Ireland and beyond, the political and social narrative has been greatly shaped by Trinity people. We're proud of this tradition. We actively seek to strengthen it. As an example, immediately after this talk, I'll be going to the dining hall, myself and the senior lecturer, to meet with this year's entrance exhibitioners and their parents and teachers. It's an annual event, but this year is the start of something different because we've changed the criteria. Previously, students with the highest CAO points became Trinity's entrance exhibitioners. But now we're awarding each student who gets top points in his or her school, provided they've got 500 points or more, an entrance exhibitionership. And this is a real shift of emphasis that promotes inclusivity. Under the previous system, a small number of schools were predominant. This year, there are 379 secondary schools represented from all 32 counties. And I'm already hearing informally the big effect that this is happening. For some schools are coming for the very first time from all parts of the country to receive entrance exhibitionerships. In fact, it's an increase of 52% over last year in the number of schools that are attending. This change in entrance exhibitioners is a small change that will have a big social impact. And I'm proud that Trinity is leading on this, as we have led on access, outreach and public engagement, both in Ireland and globally. Now, I'd like to talk a bit about two major initiatives we're working on this academic year, the philanthropic campaign and the new strategic plan. In Trinity, we've achieved significantly in research, education and social responsibility, as I've described here. I'm going to bring up the next slide. We're coming back to that timeline. Let's keep all these successes in mind and let's turn to the new strategic plan and philanthropic campaign, which we're launching next year. Both are far-reaching and will run well into the next provostship. Ideally, the philanthropic campaign and the strategic plan will reinforce each other. In both, we're asking the essential questions. What's Trinity for? Why is it unique? Why is it worth supporting? And that's support in the broadest sense. Why is Trinity worth studying in if you're a student? Why is it worth teaching in and researching in if you're an academic, or working in if you're professional staff, or staying connected to if you're an alumnus, or donating to if you're a benefactor? If, as a community, we can agree on these with one voice, then we will run a very successful philanthropic campaign and we'll articulate a transformational strategic plan. I hope in what I've been saying so far that I've got across why Trinity is worth supporting. It's because we're able to demonstrate success in so many different spheres. The philanthropic campaign reflects this multifaceted support of the university. And if we bring up some next slide, we'll see some new projects that are part of the strategic plan shown here in green. It's focusing on key capital development projects across 3 faculties, including E3, the library, and the Trinity St. James Cancer Institute, and the law school. And they're added, as I say, up here now in green. And in addition, the philanthropic campaign will focus on people, on TAP, and on talent acquisition through scholarships. With the philanthropic campaign, we're asking support for a university that, over the past few years, has taken control of its destiny and proved itself. This confidence in the university and its achievement will also be manifest in our new strategic plan. I'm proud of the current plan, of its logic and coherency, its ambitious yet realistic targets. All the same, the next strategic plan would probably be quite different, and that's how it should be. 5 years is time enough to progress. With the next plan, we can be even stronger, more vivid, and more inspiring. The current strategic plan is very focused on numbers and financial targets, and it had to be because it was devised during a time of crisis. We needed then to focus on revenue. And thanks to that focus, in particular, as I've said, on the huge growth in revenue from the crew, global relations, and from philanthropy, we're in a position with this plan to be more strategic about how to build capacity in terms of people and in terms of space. The Vice Provost will lead on this. And if one of the things I've learned from Chris, if I learned one thing, because he's a professor of English, I've learned the importance of narrative. Strategic plan is a narrative. It's not all about diagrams. I do like diagrams, but the strategic plan is a narrative addressed to a wide audience, and it paints a picture of what we want the next 5 years to look like. A university is about people and ultimately about relationships. For this strategic plan, I'd like us to think in terms of stories, themes, connections. I'd like the plan to get across the excitement and dynamism of a great university and the transformative effect such a university has on all who pass through it, and on its region, and on the worldwide network of research and scholarship that we are part of. Rather than just giving the plan years and dates, I'd like a title for this plan. I want to name it with proper nouns, with a title that conveys our thematic priorities. We're still in discussion about this, but the working title is Community and Connection. Let me explain the thinking behind this. Community is hardly a new word to us here in Trinity. We use it a lot. And I hope by community we mean the same thing, Trinity staff and students and alumni. Over the past few years, we've put a strong emphasis on our global community, and to great effect. We've placed alumni at the heart of the global relations strategy. On each of my trips abroad, I meet with alumni groups, and in the past 12 months alone, I've been in 15 cities speaking with alumni. And all of those 15 cities have active alumni branches. So this is a great global network that's going on out there for Trinity College. And I know that Juliet and her colleagues and other college officers have had similar meetings, and that schools and departments are in touch with their own graduates. The Global Graduate Forum that we held in 2013, and now the Provost Council and the other advisory boards, are the direct results of this engagement with alumni. Ours is a mutually enforcing relationship. I know how willing graduates are to be called on, and I thank them for their great contribution. They should know that it really is making a serious difference. So when I talk about a globally connected Trinity community, we can stand over that claim. It means something. It exists. Community is global, for sure, but it's also distinct, it's specific, and it's local. The internal Trinity community, or the campus community, is the community of students and academic and professional staff on the campus here and now. This has traditionally been a very strong and connected community, thanks to our college traditions like fellowship, to the senior common room, to the residential college and Trinity Hall, and the democratic traditions of Trinity, elections for all manner of positions, from provost and board positions, heads of school, faculty, department, and so on. Elections help to coalesce the community, and they encourage a sense of ownership and buy-in. I believe that Trinity's collegiate, democratic culture has been a source of strength. It's part of what we are. Of course, it entails also responsibility. I think we all have this responsibility, fellows and staff and students, to step up and show leadership and act in the best interests of the college community. And this is particularly important in a changing era. Today, staff and student numbers are larger than ever before, with competitions for students becoming a global activity. And the staff population, both academic and professional, is more mobile, with more people tending to move around with their careers. None of these changes are bad in themselves, but collectively they could loosen the bonds of community. The challenge for us is to maintain and strengthen what is essential in our traditions, what works for us, whilst remaining flexible and adaptive to the changes that are happening. In this strategic plan, we want to be proactive and creative. We want people to draw strength from community, to build confidence to do great research by seeing what goes on around them. And there are a few ways to do this. We can just bring up the first of these that I want to mention is the estate strategy. The estate strategy is being put together by the bursar Veronica Campbell and will be launched shortly. And it's about making a better use of space. Space is essential to community, as any architect will tell you. And indeed, in Trinity, I believe our sense of community comes in part from sharing this beautiful campus. Better management of space will improve connectivity across the university. And the building of new transformative spaces like the E3 Learning Foundry and Printing House Square will enable new approaches to teaching and community. The estate strategy is being complemented by an ambitious digital transformation. Now, we've had those digital projects up there that I mentioned, but we're going to have to get back to this and launch a new digital transformation strategy in the college. It's about making sure we're using technology, such as Internet of Things and AI, to the full and maximum effect to enhance the community of teaching and learning within Trinity. Just as we make optimal use or aim to make optimal use of our physical infrastructure, it follows that we need to link up and coordinate our digital infrastructure for our administration, finance, HR, and so on. Next, which one is? Research. The Dean of Research, Linda Doyle, is currently finalising the Research Excellence Strategy. And this strategy is based on a set of values such as respecting diversity of research, nurturing a supportive research environment, using our collective expertise for the greater good, and standing up for research. The Research Excellence Strategy will ensure we use the resources we have to maximise our research potential. And finally, philanthropy. Philanthropy is being embedded in the college. The campaign, which we will launch on the 4th of April 2019, is not a one-off initiative. We're transmitting philanthropy into the DNA of this university, connecting our alumni and friends with Trinity's story, inspiring them through the entirety of our mission in education, research, and public engagement. Through these and other initiatives, the new strategic plan will put emphasis on community and connection. It will build capacity where it's needed and create relationships across faculties and disciplines. A strengthened internal community will connect to a more engaged global community. Now, coming back to the books on my bedside table, I have to admit I haven't read all of them, but in fairness, there is a lot of them, and I'm not a speed reader, but I have been dipping in and out, and what I find striking so far are the thematic resemblances between them. These books are on very different subjects: climate change, transhumanism, Michael Collins, neuroscience, popular science, growing up in Dublin. Very different subjects. What joins them is, I think, a sense of optimism. In no case is this a facile sense of optimism. All the books touch on difficult issues. Luke O'Neill writes about the immune system going rogue and causing Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Lynn Ruan writes about dropping out of school and teenage pregnancy. Kevin Mitchell looks at neural disorders like schizophrenia and epilepsy. Katrina Lally explores mental illness and marginalization. Mary Robinson looks at what we've done to the planet. Hardly cheerful subjects. And yet, to read these books is to feel optimistic about scholarship and research which seeks to find solutions, and about those two words which I see as central to our next strategic plan: community and connection. If these books share a message, it's that the worst thing we can do as individuals, universities, regions, and countries is to isolate ourselves. In these books, the moment of grace and salvation comes through people making connections. Whether that connection is through a research team, or through an adult education program, or through governments agreeing climate accords, or through interpersonal relations, love and friendship. In these books, people save people, and outward-looking, inclusive, connected institutions and programs save people. All these books are wonderfully written. No way will our strategic plan be so readable, unfortunately, but I hope it will share with these books their sense of hard-won optimism, of surmounting challenges through focus on what's important. It's been great working with you on this journey so far. I look forward to launching a great philanthropic campaign and strategic plan to bring Trinity to its next phase of scholarship, research, education, and active citizenship. Thank you very much.